I'd like to continue. At the University of South Africa, we have developed a cycle of contextual theology, which we apply to our church planting and church growth idea. So this cycle looks like this. And we call it a missional cycle, or cycle of society transformative church work. Now, it's not only church planting. It's if you replant churches, you may also go that way. Replanting is the formula for the Anglican Church in Great Britain. You know that last year the Anglican Church in Great Britain for the first time didn't lose any members. You know, well, they may lost some members, but in absolute numbers, they have even grown for the first time. For the last 10 years, the Anglican Church had a global replanting program. Replanting meant every church was more or less, or had more or less to start again, even if the church was 1,000 years old. And that was quite a program. So at the end, this church is probably the only mainline church in Europe doesn't lose members, but started to recover the strength and power again, which I think is an incredible story. So a replanting program or a planting program, church planting program of a missional church will always start, we think, with involvement. Now, if you say involvement, you radically say goodbye to the North American church growth idea. Because the North American church growth idea has a categorical type of church work. What they say, you have to concentrate your church work or church growth on your homogeneous unit. They even call it the homogeneous unit principle. So you have to find your type of people, and then you will engage with your type of people, and if your type of people is spread across the city, then that's what it is. So you will collect people from everywhere. So if this is your city, let's say this is Copenhagen, I don't know whether it looks like this. And
exactly that way.
Well, I knew it is prophetic. And so, your people in Copenhagen are more or less the intellectuals, well-educated, upper middle-class people. So you look for the intellectuals, upper middle-class people everywhere in the city, and you build your church, and your church is going to attract all those guys to come over to you. The high mobility allows them to move around, they say. So you build a church for this class of people. The homogeneous unit principle, hub, is the main idea driving the categorical church work. We say no to this. And there are many, many reasons why. One of them is theological. We say the New Testament does not teach us any church which collects people from all the area and the region and runs parallel to some kind of category of people. The New Testament ecclesia is always an interracial, intercultural, intersocial reality. There is no such thing like a gathering of our interest-based people. So this might be a sociological principle. I think it's a bad one. But anyway, it is no theology. It's a bad theology. It's absolutely no theology. The homogeneous principle of unit principle of Donald McGavran was criticized heavily through the last 25, 30 years. But instead of changing anything, they would go on. All their church planting projects were based on this. In German we had another word, we were talking about the Zielgruppe. So your target group of people. You target a certain group of people and you will then saturate a whole area with the gospel. So we had Dawn, Disciple a Nation, Dawn program was picking up this basic idea and running with it through Europe. Today, we could say homogeneous unit principle in the American church growth idea is dead. We went to Athens, and for me the biggest surprise was the professor of Fuller Theological Seminary who teaches church growth and church planting today was reading a paper to us, and he literally threw this idea of a categorical church work out of the window. Yeah, I was totally surprised, completely changed, a paradigm change at the school which developed it. But they have changed it, Willow Creek, and Settle Back, and come and practical agencies like them, they still operate on this model and this agenda. So academically we have overcome the problem, practically we haven't. We say, well, we do not work on this model. We, in principle, say church is a local reality. Ecclesia is always a local reality. There is no such thing like ecclesia being regional or something like that. If you read your New Testament properly, you find that your ecclesia term is locally based. In covenant tradition, we have always underlined this principle. We've said the church is a local church, and there is an absolute priority given to the locality of your church. But in real terms, our local churches, at least in the German setting, have become churches with a local place to meet.
And then drive 1 hour.
So, and I call it a drive-in church. It's a classic McDonald's church. It has nothing to do with the principle of locality. You have a locality in a local setting, but that's not a local church. A local church is taking up responsibility for the people locally. Yeah? It's a different story altogether. So if you take that principle serious, then you will ask yourself, now where am I called to? What is my calling? Where does God want me to build a church? Now you go to your churches and you ask your churches, why in the world are you building a church here in this place? Is there some calling behind it? My experience might be different in Denmark, but then you are the total exemption in Europe, I know. Most of the churches have no clue whatsoever. We even started, at least in Germany, to build our churches in economic zones, because ground is cheaper. So funny, isn't it? How do you build your church building in an economic zones? Well, maybe you want to evangelize the machinery around you. They're not protesting. So church building far removed from people where they really live. Because we are not interested in people, we are interested in the place together. So it's us in the center of it. It's not a mission-minded church, it's not a missional church. It is a church having built a location for themselves. So we look for a deep in-routining of the church in a local setting. And so clarifying our a missional identity or a missionary identity. What is the place God wants us to be? We try to localize the church. This is a difficult process, especially with those churches which have been in the place for years and years and years and years. I'm doing the transformative process with many old churches. So old becoming young. Or replanting processes, transformative processes with traditional churches. And then we start with localizing them. What do I do with them? The first exercise with a church like this, I take a map of the locality of the city where they live, or the city where their building, their church building is. Let's say the city is Dansk. Whatever it is. So we have a city called Dansk. And that city, Dansk, has 50,000 inhabitants. And in the city we have our covenant church. Here is the covenant church building. So now I ask them, please create for me a biographical map I want to localize the church members. Where do the church members live? So this is the first, it's a biographical map. And I ask them, if you know God has led you to this city, and God has called you to be in the city, then I'd like you to take this color and put the cross in the place where you live. So the map, there's the map, and people will cross themselves in. If there are many cities around or villages around, we do the same thing with a regional map. Anyway, we localize the individual member. You see? If you do not know whether the Lord has called you to be here, please then put your sign like this. So we don't know whether these guys are called to be here. They don't know themselves. They may say, well, you know, by a chance I ended up here.
In the church or in the neighborhood?
We just talk about the church members.
But you mean if they're member of the church, or you ask them if they live in the neighborhood? I don't know why.
No, I'm just asking, where do you live? So they say, I live on the Golden Street number 14. So here's the map. I ask you to put your sign on the Golden Street number 14. We have a huge map, and I want them to put their sign in there. So, and if they know God has led me there, I live there because God gave me this place. And I am here because God wants me to be here. I know this because God is talking to me. He was speaking to me. Then your sign be green. If you do not know, then your sign be red. Okay? So this is the first step we go. And then I have a biographical map. Sometimes it looks like this. In one Covenant church in Bavaria, we had the building here, but around the building, in the village, around the building, there was not a single sign. Nobody lived here. So they had their building. They would go there every Sunday, but nobody was here. The building was here because our mission commission bought them a building for cheap money years back. So they travel up to 50 kilometers to that service. Well, the first step is create a biographical map. In reality, in all reality, you find that very few people are going to put on their biographical map a green sign. Most of them have no clue why they live there, theologically speaking. Or if you take the perspective of God, and you ask them, now, do you know anything about God calling you to live there? So they will not do this. So they just read, everything is red. Then I will ask them, now please, then I take the map and I put it away, hide the map from them and say, now we do the next map. The next map we do, I call it a map of your social contacts. So whom do you relate to? Where are people you relate to live? Where do they live? Yeah? Where do you meet them? In which place? So again I have the map and I ask them, put your sign in. And then we take another color. I play with them, always using all kinds of colors. Oh, I don't have more here. Here's the black one. Okay, so put your sign in. And then people will put their signs in. And maybe it looks like this. Here, maybe it looks like this. So we have a map of their social contacts. And I say, no spiritual, please. No religious. Just social. Where do you socialize with people who are not Christians? You have no socializing, no friends, no relationship to non-Christian people. You don't work anymore, you're a senior citizen and you sit at home, you will have to put in no sign. So just if you, in case you have. So here we have a social map now, a map of your social contacts. Then I ask, and again, I take that map and I hide it from them. And then we have a third map. I ask them to do a map of their spiritual contacts. Where is your spiritual involvement placed? Now, where do you have spiritual contacts? It is not automatically said that they will have their spiritual contacts in Covenant Church belonging to Covenant Church, the Covenant Church. Young people, for instance, may go to a charismatic church just across the street. Or they may go to some spiritual center. So I ask them, please put your spiritual contacts in. So we have our spiritual contacts. And as soon as they have their map done, I will hide this map from them. And put it to the back place of a place where I work with. And then I ask them for the last map. But before we do this, I say, well, now we go and we pray. And I want you to pray listening. I need to say, if the church has no experience with listening to the voice of God, I will stop the whole exercise right here and I'll run a seminar with them. I'll run a seminar with them. Very often I do this before we even enter the process. So teaching them, how do you hear the voice of God? How do we hear the voice of God? What does it mean you have an inner picture or you have an image? What does it mean you hear a voice? And how do you hear a voice? What does it mean, to communicate with God? And how does this work? So here we have the seminar, and you're a pastor, so I don't have to explain to you more about it. So we have this setting, and then I say, well, now we go and become quiet, and we'll all listen to our Lord for about, let's say, half an hour to an hour. And then we will design another map. We'll ask the Lord God, where do you think we belong to? Yeah? In everything we acquire there, images we see, words we hear, we will write down and then tell each other. This is a most fascinating exercise. And then I write everything down, and so we have, we create with the image, if we have concrete images, we create a map of supposed calling of the Lord. It's just supposed. We do not say it is. That's it. Yeah, it's just supposed. Soon as we have all the 4 maps, I turn them around. And in all experience I have till now, it is fascinating to see what happens. It's fascinating to see what happens. If this is the city, and this might be our church, and let's say in this case, that church building was really dumbly placed, because a leadership of a church denomination decided. Then we have, interestingly enough, the spiritual contacts very often in the social contacts grouped in a certain part of the city. There are others. But you have a very strong representation in a certain part of the city. And if they really have an experience of listening to the Lord, they will have their the fourth map matching with this. So the social and the spiritual, the social analysis and the spiritual feeling match. If this happens, then I would say, well, this is now the place we feel the Lord is calling us to. And then we go into prayer. And we make it sure the Lord clarifies it for us. It becomes not just an idea, not just a game, but a spiritual calling. Yeah? Then I say, well, this is the part of the city where you belong to. Now, part of the city means for us that your church building will have to be on a distance, foot walking distance, 1.5 kilometers. Everything else does not work. Even in urban setting, in rural it may work yet, but in urban centers, everything else is a joke. You Danes, you developed a new term. I don't know whether you know bit-size sociology. It's a Danish term which now runs the world. It's called flexicurity. You know what flexicurity means? its flexibility, and its security. It's one new term. It was actually developed in your country at universities. You know, in the past we were talking high mobility, everybody has a car, so they go even distances you name. You know, so it doesn't matter where you built your building, people would come. Today in urban philosophy we know this is just not true. People look for a quarter, for their block. People are always looking for a walking distance because of their children, because of the integration of the old folks, and you name it. So you have to have a very clearly cut territory. With this tool of going through an involvement process, we start to make the church aware that they have their territory. Go ahead.
But do you then, you don't believe in like network church?
That's the second issue. Now,
okay.
Network church, even if you have a network church, you will have 5 territories.
Okay.
Network church doesn't say anything else. Network church just says you have a different model of networking campuses.
You can still do the mapping.
The mapping you have to do anyway.
Okay, yes.
So for instance,
but you do it a little different way maybe.
No, I don't, not it at all. I do the same thing. Okay. I want the people. Now, if we have a map, and so in the map we will have 5 clusters. We have 5 clusters. Here cluster, here cluster, here cluster. So then I say, well, you are one church, but you are actually clustering your members in different areas of the city. So the best solution for you is a network church.
Yes.
It's a multi-site.
Yes.
A multi-site.
But what I also wonder is like, we have this local church as you talk about, but you can also talk about a network church in the meaning, for example, reaching the student of the city.
Well, this is I don't believe in that.
Yeah.
I don't believe it. This is categorical. This is the old hub idea. That's the old idea of homogeneous unit principle.
But we see churches in Denmark growing fast in Europe by this, for example, to students.
Yeah, people always say this. I have not seen them. You may see them. There are some little churches, and they grow for one generation.
Okay.
It's fly-by-night churches. They come and they go. There is no deep rooting. It's actually a discotheque. It's a disco church. Young people go there. They enjoy themselves. As soon as they marry and they have small children, you have seen them. Goodbye forever. So it's not really building churches. And
but you know this.
Yeah.
But in Denmark, I think we haven't seen so many churches that succeed gathering different age groups, generations.
No.
Very often it becomes senior churches or family churches with small
and we lose the young people.
Yeah,
how do you do that?
This is homogeneous unit principle. Yeah. This is the old idea. That is everywhere. It's not just Denmark.
Yeah.
It's
but what's your solution then?
Again, I say, just listen to the end. You see, I want to show you that getting deep roots into a territory means you cover all generations and all needs of the territory. You respond to the needs of the people living there, and not needs having certain needs responded, which are in the heads of young people or old people or take you. You see, I have a territory to cover, and the territory is a social realm. It is a social. It's a Lebensraum. So the whole system I described to you in the beginning today, only works territorially. You will very soon die out as soon as you start to serve young people only or senior citizens only. This thing does not work. Yeah, it hasn't worked in big terms. Well, there's also always an exemption, and if you have one church or 2 churches and they have proven something else, then God bless them. I'm not saying it's absolutely wrong to work like this. I have worked for many years with the American model, and our churches, they may grow from the scratch to a certain point, and then we start just to attract believers. And it is always the same story. So if you say we plant churches, and planting churches means I will collect as many young Christian people for a great worship scene as I can, then in my eyes you do not plant a church. You create a Christian gathering. It's a conference, it's a festival. It is in no way a church, because a church is something else.
But the reason why I think is not just to make a theoretical discussion, it's because the Sognekirker, like the Lutheran state church in Denmark, they have this divided into small areas of the city, and they are struggling to reach the cities. And there are some trends somewhere that you try to make bigger places with like 5 churches multi-site, you know. So that's the opposite what you tell us.
No.
But of course our story is like we are not being looked.
No, not at all. The Lutheran churches dividing their dioceses. Yeah, the Lutheran Church, the classic mainline church, was classically a local reality.
Yes.
The problem with the Lutheran, with the mainline church, there were no church. You can't say, well, a Volkskirchen, a church, a Volkskirche, a Volkschurch, without any real spiritual reality behind it, is a church. It's an organization. The principle of a diocese wasn't bad. The church was in the village. But the church was no church. That's the problem. People come to me and say, well, Johannes, now, see, they always have been localized, involved, but they have never grown. So this might be an argument against the system. I say, no, stop it. And then now they disintegrate. And I tell you, they will totally disintegrate. If they do, in Germany they start to understand this is not the way to go. It's not the way to go. In the replanting program of the Anglican churches stopped it already. They say we have to have a local reality, but on a small scale. And then under one roof. So we want a strategic roof. We are one church for the whole city, but we meet in different locations. On different models and modes because of the classes and what have you. But we are one church, and we sell ourselves as one church. So we are a local church. Anyway, the system I introduced to you starts with involvement, and this is in my eyes, the most difficult part for most of our Covenant and Baptist and Methodist and what have you churches. And I give you an example. Here I am with a church in Berlin. Berlin, a small city with 4.5 million people living there. So I come to this church, they have 140 members, and I ask them, what is your territory? What's your divine territory? Where did the Lord send you to? The church is in the southern part of Berlin, in a district called Mariendorf. So I asked them, now tell me, what is your target? They say Berlin. Well, this is an incredible calling. 150 guys responsible for 4.5 million people. This is an incredible calling. So I told them this is baloney. Forget about this type of calling. If the Lord called you to reach out to the whole city of Berlin, then I want to see your strategy. And you have been in the city now for 80 years. You are here for 80 years. You've grown from zero, planted with a couple of people, years, decades back, and now you are 140. Now let's take all the guys away which have moved to Berlin from all kinds of places in Germany. So they did this exercise for me. You know how many were left? 5. So I said, this is an incredibly strategic, successful program. Yeah? The program is not at all strategic and it's not at all successful. So please guys, what we now do, we will localize your church. And the question is, are you belonging to Mariendorf? Because God wants you in Mariendorf. We had an incredibly interesting exercise. None of them lived in Mariendorf. None of them. Not a single of their members lived in Mariendorf. They would all go there for their services. And when we did this exercise, we finally found the Lord didn't call them there too. And so we had to remove this church. And they removed. And I can tell you, the church was 140. Now they removed to a number of locations. So we split the church. Because they were all sitting in one building, in one church, but they were not one church. People would call to totally different locations. And now all of them grow. In a matter of 2 years, we see an incredibly growing structure. And for the first time, they are baptizing 40, 50 new converts every year. There is a growth pattern established. So the first step we do in our cycle is involvement, trying to clarify your territory, your location. The second is, we try to find what is your potential in the church. Now, if I build a building, a structure, I want to know where are my bricks, where is my wood, I want to know what do I have. I'll be a bad builder if I will not ask those questions. Yeah? I have to know what kind of material do I have. I only have this. So what do I have in the church? Now what we do, we will measure the potential according to our structure of the social realm, of the Lebenswelt. We will ask for material potential, for social potential, for cognitive potential, and for religious potential, which is the spiritual gifts. So we'll ask, what does our church have? And what do I do with them? I will explain what it means, material potential. What are material gifts? What are material competences? What is material potential of the church? What does it mean? So I explain to them, and then we have small groups. We divide our church in about groups of 10, and then I give them a little sheets of paper. On the sheet of paper it says your name, and then material potential, and then possibility to write something down. So they write what they think they have. One is writing, I have a car, I have a house, I have 2 rooms for guests if you wanted them, and I earn money, and there is some money free for me to give. I have a guitar at home, and so on. So I asked them to write down everything they believe they have. So now they do this, and then I ask the people around the table to share this. Now this sheet goes from me to John, and John knows me. So I asked John, you look through everything he's written down, and then you may question mark those points you believe, well, that is an overestimate. The guy doesn't really have it, so you put in a question mark. Or you feel that something is missing, and then you write it in. So the sheet goes to about 10 people, and they all add. At the end it comes back to me. So I look through this, and then I may say, well, the additions, they sound nice, but they're not covering what I really are. So you put in question marks. You may erase those question marks others have put in, or you start to think about it. And then we go into a prayer fellowship, and we ask the Lord to look at our sheets. Yeah? And after that we correct it again. Then I ask every member, now every piece of word noted in those sheets, I ask them to bring them on little cards. So they do this, but the sheets, they are given to the pastor or the pastoral leadership, to the leadership of transformation process, and they will bring it into a software we developed for potential analysis. Yeah? So every member is allowing to do so. It's very important in our setting. It is because of the what do we call it? Datenschutz. What's the Datenschutz? What's Datenschutz?
The security. No?
Data security.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much. So it's very important. So now we have done the material potential. After the material, we do the same thing with the social, we do the same thing with the cognitive gifts and competencies and so on, and then we come to the spiritual gifts, to the religious area. And we do, with everything, we do similar analysis. At the end, the church leadership has in their computer program every piece of potential available in the church. I will never ever ask anymore in my church, who wants to organize this little thing? If I know my chart shows we have 4 people with the gift of organization, and they are John and Johannes and Helga and who knows ever it is. I will never ask those stupid questions, because if you ask everybody who wants to do something freely, you know, the result is always 3 donkeys. And they all do this everything. They are for everything there, because their consciousness drives them to say yes to almost everything. It's non-strategical church planting. Strategical church planting takes the gift seriously, potential seriously, because the Spirit gives the gifts, and the Lord names ministries according to the gifts in order to produce energy flowing. There is no single company in this world which would ever do what churches do. Say, who wants to take this job? We have a software development job. Would you like to take this job? And then you say, yes, but you know, I have been milking cows. Or I'm a mechanical engineer. And they say, well, it doesn't matter. Milking cows and developing software well, you will somehow do this. The only organization in the world doing this is the church. They do not ask, not deeply enough, ask for competences and for gifts. And now we do this. We say, what the gifts and competences is in your church available?
How big a group can you do this in?
I said 10.
Is it 10?
Yeah. Now after everything has been collected, yeah, and all the gifts are on little cards, then I ask the church to bring those cards on oh, now I don't have the word. Sorry, when I get tired, I get all the words, but not the English, the words I need. On the stands, let's put them in stands, let's call them stands. Yeah.
Towel.
Huh?
In Danish, you mean towel. I don't know the word. In
Board.
The
Like
board.
this?
Board.
Boards, whatever. So on boards. And then I will look for the paralleling cards. We'll bring them together, we cluster them. Everything, let's say there are 5 cards, so we'll have then 1 card, and we put in 5. And we have, let's say, 10 cards describing organizational skills, so it's organization, and we have 10. So we cluster them down by naming this, and then I will ask them to cluster them even to so-called core competences. Now I say your church has 3, the most, core competences. I want you to cluster this to 1, 2, 3 core competences. Your core competence decides about the light of your church. This is what you may be able to do best. And your salt of earth and light of the world is the best you can. It really doesn't matter what it is, but I want to know what is best you can. You're 5 members, fine, doesn't matter. You're 25, okay. 1,000, great. But I want to cluster it down to your core competences. The process of clustering is described in many, many works, especially social works. You can get it from the university. You can get specialists who understand what clustering is all about. Clustering is a process to bring things together and bring them into a narrow frame where at the end you always put some new term. So for instance, you have many gifts and competences and you look for something which is a heading for everything. Maybe there will be one, you have lots of counseling competences in your church, and then you have different gifts around this. So you cluster your counseling competency. Or you may say, well, in our church, what we have written down, it's not counseling. In our church, the main competency is, like Russian churches, very often that's what happens, but you do with them, they have a humanitarian aid competences. Humanitarian aid. So humanitarian aid is your core competence, and there is a number of competences, gifts, and so on around this. So I cluster it down to core competences. Why is this important? At the end, the resources of your church are going to determine the projects you enter. And you want to enter in a project with strong sides, not with weak. This is the problem with Christian Schwarz's idea of always looking at the weak side of your church. You empower the weak in order to become strong. And I say you describe your strong sides in order to be seen. Because if the world doesn't see light, then the world will never be attracted by that light. So what is your strong side? What can you do best? Where are you valuable? Where would the city or the village want to have you in? For instance, let's say your strong side is mediation. Yeah? So then in a city or in a group with all kinds of different nationalities and cultures, mediation is an incredible strong thing. I just written a book a couple of years ago on intercultural church. So how do you create an intercultural church in our urban centers? And I use the term mediation as being the entry into creating intercultural churches in our country. And whatever we have done, you know, using the core competence of the church, mediation competence of the church, and getting a team together which is able to do so, then the church was growing with an interesting speed. For instance, the Covenant Church of Nuremberg, in our city of Nuremberg, in Germany, Nuremberg, Covenant Church in Nuremberg. Covenant Church in Nuremberg has about 450 members by now. Now, more than 2/3 of the members are former Muslims.
Huh.
Almost 2/3. They have Arabs, they got Armenians, they got all kinds of nationalities in this church, in the city of Nuremberg. But then you ask, why is this way? But their church building has become the mediation center for the whole city. And they are located in a place where all those migrants live. So they are the center which solves our problems. Now, the pastor of this church, he was creating a team which was very strong on mediation. In church planting ideas, I will always pre-design my team. I will even hunt for those gifts. First we look at the territory, then we say what kind of team do I need in order to church plant there. In a church transformation process, I first find out what the church has. And then I go to the next step. But we do not only look for the potential the church has. We do it with the church, and then we will also start to ask the question of what resources does our city have. We do not only ask for our own potential, we look for the potential available in the city. So we might are very strong in humanitarian aid, or we are strong in mediation, or we may have other strong sides. And I always ask, don't be too pious here. Don't use terminology which is very Christian. Use terminology which is understandable to everybody. Use a real language. Don't use any pious canonical language. Use real language. Okay, so this is the second step. You find your potential. Now we'll go to the next step, and it's context analysis. Again, We have our Lebenswelt, the fourfold Lebenswelt, and we want to know now what is actually going on in the context. How does the context, how does our city, how does our village look? What are the material needs? What are the social needs? What are the cognitive problems? And what are the religious problems in the place we live? Yeah? So we want to know what kind of needs are obvious. But we also want to know now what kind of Sehnsüchte. After having slept for 30 minutes, I lost my English. Was sind Sehnsüchte?
Længsel. Længsel, så das ist doch Dänisch.
Yeah, well,
Longing.
you understand what that is? Yes. Yeah, it will come in a second. So, so what are the needs and what are the Längsler? So, what's there? Yeah, but we are also interested to find out what are actually, who are actually our next potential partners. We want to know who is doing what. Remember, the context we are interested in is influenced by God, so we ask, where is God active? In the material, in the social, in the cognitive, and in the religious. We ask, where are the human beings? What do they do? What are their needs and what their Längsler? And what are their strong sides? And where they may even be interested in, let's say, social justice or mediation. They might be totally anti-Christian Muslims, but they are very interested in in the just distribution of food. So they are not at all partners for us in religious terms, but they are incredible partners in the question of distribution of food. The Green Party in my country is obviously not a partner in the question of sexual orientation. They are totally into homosexuality, and I'm not with them, to be honest. So they in this area very active, but they're also incredibly active in the whole issue of ecological preservation of our territory. So I will look for their strong and for their weak points. I'm looking for where is God in their life, where is the devil in their life, and where are they themselves in all of this. So context analysis is of course an operation which needs certain instruments. To do context analysis, you will have to look into social science. Social science, there's lots of stuff done in this. Again, we have created at home in Germany. We have a manual, a book on social analysis, on Ortsanalyse, on world analysis, on Lebenswelt analysis, called Die Welt verstehen. For those of you who speak German, I didn't know there were so many German speakers. I would have brought some books along. But you can order them. So in those books we describe how to proceed. How to do, for instance, the first step is participant observation. What is participant observation? How do you do participant observation? What is this all about? Now, participant observation is a scientific tool. It's used in culture analysis, in local analysis, and so on. Participant observation is a certain scientific tool. You go to your internet, to Google, and you find all about participant observation. So we form now in the church a group which does participant observation. And what I asked the church, what I asked those people to do, please go through your quarter to the place we have found to be your place. That's where the Lord wants you. You go to your territory. You don't go to all kinds of cities. You don't go to the whole of Denmark. You don't go even to the whole of city of Copenhagen. You go to your part, your territory. We found your territory. Now we ask only questions in regard to your territory. People come and say, but my sister lives in New York. So I say, don't care about your sister in New York. At the moment we are discussing Copenhagen, or we discuss Aarhus, we discuss your place. And so please concentrate on your place. That's what we do. So then we clarify what are the needs and what are the strong sides, whatever it is. You had the name and I just forgotten again. The strong sides, and we have your partners, potential partners. So you go and you create little cards and put on the card what you've seen there. Where do you think are the needs of the people? Where have you seen God in movement? Where have you seen something you would say, well, this is obviously funny, but it looks like demonic. Yeah, we have to figure out. So okay, they do this, then I create another group of people. So this one group. Parallel to this, we have another group of people. They go through the same territory, but they go and they analyze all the social data which have been already created about this place. Now in my country, almost every village has been analyzed. We call it social maps, or social atlas of a certain city. So the sociologists, they have analyzed this place, they look what kind of people live there. Sometimes they are even able to tell you exactly who lives where. There's a big organization called Sinus, and Sinus does this kind of data sampling through the whole country. So there is already data available. So I ask guys who are a bit trained to read such maps and to read such data, do the same thing. Just ask, what are the needs described here? What are the strong sides described here? What are the potential partners you may see there? And again, it all comes on little cards. And then we have another group, or maybe one of them does two tasks, but another task for context analysis. And this group does specialist interviews. So we go to the mayor, we go to the leader of the social department in your territory, we may go to a school teacher or school director. We go to those guys whom we believe be important for this place. So specialists. And we ask them exactly the same questions. Now what do you think are the felt needs of the people living in our territory? So what do you think, what is the strongest, is the strongest flavor of our place? What can we do best? What would the people like to do best? And they may say, well, if nothing functions in Bavaria, as soon as they organize a festival, that festival with lots of beer is always great. So we know they organize festivals and they organize them well, so they are strong sides. And then you ask now, who is organizing them? And the specialist is maybe going to tell you, well, we have 3 or 4 organizations doing so. So we note it, and then potential partners. So we have this third operation, and that third operation goes to people, specialists, and talks to them, and then brings out information which we again bring on cards and then collect. Then we have the last group, and the last group is, I call it the prophetic group. We have people with a special gift of listening to what God says. And those prophets, or those guys with a gift of distinguishing of spirits, those people with such special gifts of the Holy Spirit, we send into the territory and we ask them to listen. We want to have a perspective of heaven. Now, how does God look at this territory? What does God say about this territory? So we ask for a divine insight. So we have the social insight and we have the divine insight. Again, all those insights come on little cards. At the end, I will have cards describing needs on my boards. I will have cards describing strong sides of the population of our territory and our potential partners. And what I do then, after I have all collected all this data, yeah, it's always computer-based, but it's also on cards in order to play with the people or design with the people the answer in front of them, with them. It's always very important not to invite an institute doing it for your people. Do it with the people themselves. In Germany, we have done a big mistake. The first thing I designed, about 10 years ago, we established Empirica. Empirica is a scientifically working institute for context analysis in Marburg. And that institute does a very good job. We do something like this for companies, for the Lutheran and Reformed Church, even for the Catholic Church. And we did it for local churches, our local churches. I tell you, such an analysis costs about 10,000 euro, and the churches paid it like this. They paid it, but it didn't change anything. The people need to do it themselves. Today I don't do any context analysis for the church. I only do it with the church. Even if that context analysis is at the end not completely scientific, not completely all right, I don't care. I want the church to see the needs. I want the church to feel the needs. I want the church to be in the field. Otherwise you will never create an awareness for this place.
How long does it take?
Yes, that's a good.
Yeah. The context analysis takes, in our setting, about 2 months, 2 to 3 months.
And how often you then meet? So you do it like one evening?
No, we usually say every member will have to see, of course, you know, for instance, if you have your expert interviews, that might be 4 or 5 meetings, because you will have to spend about an hour with your mayor. And if the mayor says, I'm going to talk to you, and he gives you time, yeah, then you of course want to establish not only receive information, you want to establish a relationship. If the mayor says, let's have a glass of beer, I tell my friends, even if you're never drinking any beer, you will have that beer. I tell you, if you can't, you do not go there. You don't go. You do not go there. I want you to establish a relationship. Yeah, and all those experts are also potential partners.
But I mean, like, you do it for 2 months, and then all the team is at work these 2 months.
I mean,
everybody in the team is then working.
In the team? What's
in the team?
In the team,
yes, yeah. They are working for 2 months.
Yeah, every team works about for 2 months. So in the we meet when the church goes through such a process. I meet with the church once a month for 1 day. So our advisor is with the church every month for a whole day. So if the church signs up with us for such a process, I will be in the church 12 times a year. There's an agreement between the church and our advising team. So the advisor comes in every month. And the church will sign up for a year. The whole process, our whole cycle takes a year. So in 1 year, we will move from the traditional church to the basics of a missional church. And it's at least 1 year. So most of the churches need more time. Because they are, for instance, the first step we were discussing, the involvement step, in most of our traditional churches takes much more time than 2 months. But it's a 2-month period. It's always 2-month period. Okay. Now, if you've done the context analysis, you have all this information in front of you, and then we do the same thing. Now we cluster again. So we bring the information which sounds similar together. We package the information. We want to see what are the core needs of your place. We want to see what the core needs of your place are. And so we can't establish all needs. So we say, well, just remember the core giftedness of your church. And with this umbrella, or with this glasses of your core potential, we look at the information. So we actually asked, now what could we, with our core competency, do in the core need? Is there something matching? And at the end we have established a core need of this place. For instance, we discovered in the village where I started the church plant 11 years ago, we discovered unemployment was the problem of this place. We were a church doing context analysis. In the church were 5 members. 5 members, a covenant church of 5 members. So we did a context analysis.
How many teams?
Huh?
How many teams?
Well, 5. No, 1 team. Yeah, we were a very small church. So what we discovered, unemployment was a core problem here in this place.
How big was it?
It was this village, I talked about the village, 1,800 inhabitants. Yeah, but 17% unemployment. 17% unemployment. We discovered that was the biggest problem in this place. But to make the story short, we have seen this, and we have seen that in our 5-member team, we had a strong, very strong organizational and motivational giftedness. And we decided we would take this on. We'll take this on. 3 years later, our church was the first evangelical church in the country with a gasoline station belonging to us. We were the first church with a Volksuniversity, because the People's University, Volkshochschule in our area was closed down because of no money, budget money available. So we started with a ballet school. Then we started with a music school. Then we had a dancing training center, and so on. Our church, a small church, started to move into society. Yeah, and today this church, after 11 years, has 350 members. 4 new church plants came out of this, all independent churches. The church has in the social program 32 full-time people and 8 full-time missionaries in 4 countries. Yeah, 11 years later.
That's a revival.
And you may call it revival, or you say the church has really got into the context. Yeah. So what is the problem? Where's the dark spot in that city? Because if we are the light of the world, the light only makes sense if the light is lightening the places which are dark. Yeah. It is the most stupid evangelical operation, always to point to God. We are a little projector, and then we point to the sun and we say, "See, there is a sun." Oh, it's stupid, isn't it? The sun is justifying herself. You don't have to justify God. People are arguing, you know, God is real God. We have to make clear God is still seen by them. Don't do this. You don't have to justify God. If God moves into the context and you be there as God's ambassador in the darkest place of the world, you will see miracles taking place. You know, after the first sick people got healed, the whole story with the 5 was moving into a total different dimension. You know, after the first big bunch of money came in, you know, and it came in from a source you'd never expected. And then people in this little village say, "Well, this is interesting. The mayor phoned me for the first time and said, 'Professor, I thought you were sick and you were absolutely crazy, but this is interesting.'" Yeah? So don't justify God. You don't have to prove to God that you're still with Him. Let God be God. You start to become light to those people who are in need. You have to be where the darkest spots are. You have to be with your light at the place where your light is needed. And so we have to find those spots. In Bergneustadt, where we just built a church now, we found that the people were not fed. Not fed. I told you, 700 families. Yeah? And so the first thing we started, we were 9 members, a new plant. 9 members, starting anew, in this place. Very Muslim. And we started with a feeding scheme. Then we found there was no place to offer this. And there was an old hotel in the middle of a city, almost ruined. So we prayed, and God made it very clear, buy this place. And I said, Lord, we are 9 members, and I'm the only guy earning money. And I am a Covenant Church pastor. The Covenant Church doesn't pay well. You know all of this, Lord. So, but he said, well, buy this place. We bought the place, and we're restoring the place. We have restored the first store. It's the oldest place in our city, and the city started to help out. Today, we have already invested more than 600,000 euros. It's not us investing it. I think they're about 5,000 our money. The rest came from all kinds of places. So people all of a sudden see this. They start to get the feeling, well, there's a miracle going on. There's something, there's an old Catholic lady, you know, when she came to our site and saw this old plant, everything was in a terrible state. And 2-3 of our young fellows, you know, trying to change something, she came and said, kiddies, what are you doing here? Yeah, we are out to start a feeding scheme for those poor in our city. And we would like to see, they started to develop a vision. They said, well, we're planning a cafe for Muslim women here. We plan a youth center where youth from the streets is taken in, and we will engage them and we'll give them meaning for life again. We're planning a training center for the unemployed young people, and we will have an unemployment center, a Christian unemployment center in this building. There were 3 students, you know, Bible school students. They didn't look like being the biggest guys in the place. And this old lady, she said, and why do you believe this will all happen? Well, the guy said, don't you worry, because God is with us. So this old lady went home, and the next week, the first 10,000 euro came to our account. Now, she's a great friend. She's Catholic. She doesn't believe evangelicals are right. She has not become a member of our church yet. But the other day she asked me, you know, Professor, she still called me Professor, you know, Professor, if I decided to be baptized, would you baptize me? Now, this is always the first step towards the right place, you know. So we find a way, don't you worry. Context analysis helps us to see the dark spots in your place, in your society.
Yeah, it's coffee break.
I've overdone it, right?
Now it's okay.
Yeah, we will be there in a second.
Finish point 3.
In a second. So it helps us to discover those dark spots, the needy place. But it also helps us to discover those old Catholic ladies. It helps us to discover people God has been talking to long before we even started. Because He has His people. He knows all of them. And there are, well, potentially speaking, 100,000s of them ready to enter the Covenant Church of Denmark. Your only problem is you don't know it yet. I did my English with a geniusly gifted teacher. I came to her to speak a word, and she looked at me and said, Mr. Reimer, do you know that you already now, right now, speak 20,000 English words? I said, well, this is stupid. He says, no, I'm not stupid, don't call me stupid. You already now have a potential of 20,000 English words. Your only problem is you don't know it, it's passive. And then I received the first book, and the book was a pictorial encyclopedia. It was a book called The Germanic Roots of English. And I all of a sudden discovered all kinds of German words which were incredibly German. They sounded incredibly German. Then I had the same book for Greek roots and Latin roots. And 2.5 months later, I presented my first speech in a master class on the salvific event described by the prophets of the Old Testament. And it was an incredible talk. I didn't say a single word in that talk which wasn't German. I only understood that Kommunikation is communication. In Sitz im Leben is a Sitz im Leben. And salvation history is Heilsgeschichte. It's not Heilsgeschichte, it's Heilsgeschichte. And so on. At the end, I delivered an incredible speech, and people came to me and they said, well, my goodness, Mr. Reimer, your English is great. It was a German talk. German, Latin, Greek talk. It was a high-level talk. There were lots of terms the guys had to look up in a dictionary. But it was English. It was good English. It was great English. So there is a potential for the Covenant Church running around Denmark. The only problem is they don't know it yet. And your problem is you don't know it yet. And in order to find out, you have to have coffee.